When I came into this office, I made two commitments that are more important than any commitment I make. Number one, to keep the American people safe, and number two, to uphold the Constitution. And that includes what I consider to be a constitutional right to privacy and an observance of civil liberties. Now, the programs that have been discussed over the last couple of days in the press are healthy for our democracy. Nobody is listening to your telephone calls. That's not what this program's about. So I want to be very clear. Some of the hype that we've been hearing over the last day or so, nobody's listening to the content of people's phone calls. How are we striking this balance between the need to keep the American people safe and our concerns about privacy? Because there are some trade-offs involved. But I think it's important to recognize that you can't have 100% security and also then have 100% privacy and zero inconvenience. Trust me, the modest encroachments on privacy, they help us prevent terrorist attacks. Now, with respect to the internet, there are a whole range of safeguards involved. The last thing they'd be doing is taking programs like this to listen to somebody's phone calls. They take this work very seriously. But when you actually look at the details, then I think we've struck the right balance. Okay? All right, and we'll have a chance to talk further during the course of the next couple of days. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Many argue that extraordinary powers, right, such as these, are necessary for protecting us or keeping us safe. They use reassuring political language. Perhaps this is true. But we should always be aware that we may not get to choose what it is that we're actually being protected from. Surveillance technologies have outpaced democratic controls. A generation ago, surveillance was extremely expensive. There was a natural limitation imposed upon it. That is, the governments had to spend huge, extraordinary sums to track lone, isolated individuals. To know a particular person's location might involve many teams of officers, both in buildings and out on the streets, working in shifts. But today, that dynamic is reversed. One guy sitting in front of a monitor can track with precision an unimaginably large number of people.
So first, you guys might be wondering how surveillance cameras can help prevent theft. Well, that's why I'm here to tell you that cameras have been useful for many businesses when it comes to making sure that customers and employees are not stealing. As much as we'd like to believe that employers can trust their employees, that is not always the case, which makes it even more important to have cameras installed. Business owners should be able to see what their employees are doing, and because they can't keep their eyes on everyone at all times, it's important to have cameras because it's a good way to making sure that employees are doing their job or not. There are places of privacy such as inside your own home, but if you're out and about in public places, it is more important to ensure the safety and protection of everyone as opposed to being concerned about an individual's privacy.
Just remember that all the benefits that come with having cameras. Having surveillance cameras can help to put the mind at ease while watching over belongings, keeping the truth, saving money, and making it a safer place overall.
Over the last 16 months, as I've debated this issue around the world, every single time somebody has said to me, I don't really worry about invasions of privacy because I don't have anything to hide, I always say the same thing to them. I get out a pen, I write down my email address, I say, here's my email address. What I want you to do when you get home is email me the passwords to all of your email accounts. Not just the nice, respectable work one in your name, but all of them. Because I want to be able to just troll through what it is you're doing online, read what I want to read, and publish whatever I find interesting. After all, if you're not a bad person, if you're doing nothing wrong, you should have nothing to hide. Not a single person has taken me up on that offer.
Does the NSA collect any type of data at all on millions or hundreds of millions of Americans?
No, sir.
It does not.
Not wittingly. There are cases where they could inadvertently, perhaps, collect, but not wittingly.
There is a very common sentiment that arises in this debate, even among people who are uncomfortable with mass surveillance, which says that there's no real harm that comes from this large-scale invasion because only people who are engaged in bad acts have a reason to want to hide and to care about their privacy. Now, there's a reason why privacy is so craved universally and instinctively. It isn't just a reflexive movement like breathing air or drinking water. All of us, not just terrorists and criminals, all of us have things to hide.
Yeah, you
that kind of
can't.
stuff.
It's going to be really hard to
Yeah.
pull shit off in the
Yeah.
future. And it seems like with all these Nest phones and Ring phones, and or not Ring phones, Ring cameras and Net cameras,
Yeah.
Nest cameras that people have on their front doors. After a while, it's everywhere you go, you're going to be filmed.
What this is really about this is about liberty versus surveillance, not versus security or anything else like that. Surveillance preys on vulnerability. Surveillance preys on the lack of privacy. The idea is, what is liberty? If you ask a bunch of different people in the room, they might have different ideas. But in a large way, liberty and what has made the American tradition so powerful and our project so successful is the ability to act without permission. Liberty is freedom from permission.
It seems to be
Bad people can get
just
out.
a matter of time before you have surveillance everywhere. Everywhere you go. Everywhere. Everything is available to everyone, except inside your house. Like, people are going to tinfoil up the inside of their bedrooms just to try to keep people out. Mm-hmm. And then you have the fucking television that probably has a webcam on it,
Another thing I'd like to point out is that almost all of these cameras will reveal their model name even if you're not authenticated, either on the login page or the login prompt, depending on how they're doing authentication. It'll tell you what its model number is. So if I, as an attacker, know the model number, even if I know nothing else about this camera, I can go on Google, I can Google the model number, go to the vendor's webpage, download the firmware, maybe have to add, tab = 4, get the firmware and start analyzing it for vulnerabilities without ever even having to buy the device. And this is exactly what I did with all of these cameras.
It's just the pros, I think, at least right now, outweigh the cons. It's just we all wonder where it's going. That's what's scary. What's scary is the unknown. What's scary is this unknown surveillance state aspect of it all.